my name is Gabe Zollner. I'd like to spend a little time and talk about our members of Congress. You know, what's interesting is that the majority of individuals that are in Congress, when they joined Congress, they weren't very wealthy individuals. I mean, they were average Americans. And now there's, I believe, 249 of those individuals out of the 535 are multi-millionaires. Now, they didn't get there based on their salaries, and their salaries are rather lucrative. They receive $174,000 a year in salary, which necessarily doesn't sound like a great deal of money, but remember, they don't work a whole lot. They spend most of the time back in their districts with their constituents, and most of those people are suffering to try to stay alive in today's economy. But anyway, out of that $174,000, they also receive a rather lucrative budget for their offices. Some of them have 2 offices, some of them have 3 offices, and each office is fully staffed. So what ends up happening is that a senator probably costs the American taxpayer around $3 or $4 million, and that covers his offices, his staff, his expenses, his haircuts, and his travel, and everything else. What's interesting as well is that less than 1% of Americans are multimillionaires, and once again, 47% of members of Congress are multimillionaires. That might be a little bit higher now. This information is about 1.5 years old. Anyway, now you sort of wonder, well, how did they make their money if, in fact, they don't earn that kind of money? Well, the way they make their money is by knowing as to what's going to take place and when it's going to take place. Like, for example, when Polson came down and said, well, you know what, we're going to have to bail out the banks. Well, Pelosi was in that meeting, and what did she do? She went and bought Visa stock. And what did her hubby do? Well, he bought Visa stock. And what did they do? I think they made $6 million overnight. And then you have our speaker, Crybaby Boner. What did he do? Well, he knew that healthcare was going in a certain direction, so he went ahead and he ended up buying healthcare stock. And I think he made $2.6 or $2.8 million in a very, very short period of time. The point is that they all do that. They all understand as to what's going to take place and when it's going to take place. And since they're the lawmakers, the laws that they make don't apply to them, just to us. Pretty interesting, huh? Anyway, so if you're thinking of having your son or daughter go to university to become a doctor, you might want to reconsider, because from what I've been told, in around 2014, every healthcare professional, now that would include a doctor, will become part of the union. And this whole healthcare thing, Obamacare, it had nothing to do with trying to ensure that people at lower income brackets have healthcare. It had to do with unionizing everyone. That's what it had to do with. And he's done it so far. Anyway, the other thing, too, that's interesting is that a senator can serve indefinitely. Every 6 years they come up for renewal. And you've got guys like Rhino McCain. He's been around, I think, 25 years. So he's been hanging on a long time. And then you've got people like Dianne Feinstein. I think she's been in Congress for, I don't know, 40 years. It's just insane. And the biggest problem that we have with our members of Congress is that when they first go to Washington, they have 0 experience. And it's like putting them in the front seat of a 747 and saying, here, go fly it. They don't know how, and because they don't know how, they can't relate. They don't suffer, or they don't deal with the same issues that their constituents deal with, because they live in a whole different world. They travel first class. They dine at the finest restaurants, their club memberships are all paid for, and they don't pay to Social Security. Why? Because they have their own plan, which is incredibly lucrative. After serving only 5 years, they can retire when they retire, and they can retire at 62, whereas in my case it was 66. But they can retire at 62. And if they serve 20 years and they're 50, they can retire. So, and when they retire, the retirement benefits that they get are dramatically different than what we get on Social Security. Anyway, so The recommendation that I would make is if you have a son or daughter and contemplating a career for them, suggest that they go into politics. And, you know, they don't have to really even have a birth certificate. They don't have to have a social security card. They can get a new one. You know, they can get a military registration card. They can get a new passport. There's no end to what they can obtain in this country. You know, this is like the American dream. And a perfect example of that is Barry Soetoro or Barack Obama or whoever he is. I mean, we don't even know who he really is, but it doesn't matter. The point is that the system that we have needs to change. And it needs to change for a lot of reasons. It needs to change because when people are in a position for an extended period of time, like Senator McCain, they become what's known as dead wood. You know, they don't come up with any new ideas. Well, that's not true. McCain has come up with some ideas. He's the creator, with his buddy, who's a Democrat, Carl Levine. They both co-authored the National Defense Authorization Act. If you're not familiar with that, you may want to look it up. What it does is it allows the president to put anybody he wants in prison that he feels is a threat to this nation. No due process, no Miranda rights, no trial, no nothing. He just disappears. That was McCain and Carl Levine's brainchild. Anyway, what needs to happen is there has to be term limits. Now, the problem with them having to be term limits is that they're the ones that vote on it. They're not going to vote on it because they're going to cut their own throats. They're not going to kill a golden goose. So, I guess we're pretty much between a rock and a hard place. They keep getting reelected because they keep feeding their constituents like Pelosi did in Northern California. She exempted a lot of her friends in high-end, high-class restaurants from having to participate in Obamacare. And she's going to get a lot of votes for that, so she'll probably hang in for quite a while. And that's what they all do. That's exactly what they all do. They promise us the world, and they deliver us a nightmare. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with a total and complete nightmare. What's the answer? I don't know. But should you send your children to university to become a doctor? Probably not. We do need doctors, but who's going to want to be a doctor when you're part of the union? So the only doctors we're probably going to get are from India. And maybe that's what has to happen in this country before they can wake up. I don't know. They say that we have the best system. I don't think so. The best system for voting, I think, is in Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, you can only vote one time. And the reason being is you take a bottle of this ink, you put your finger into it, and now it's all black. You can't vote again. Unlike what you can do here, you can just go in and vote, grab another ID, go vote again, grab another ID, go vote again. And that's how our president is where he is. That's one of the reasons. But that's a whole different story. Anyway, I hope there's a future for this country. Personally, I don't see it. And I said this before, and I think the best thing we could do is start studying Arabic. We're going to need it. Thanks.